Welcome, my name is George Pearson and I run the How to Gurus channel here on YouTube. Most of the videos on my channel are short demonstrations of the different tools and techniques that you'll find in different software programs. Right now I have several hundred of these quick videos available on YouTube. This video though is different. This is one in a series of longer project demonstrations that I'm doing that show you how to complete complex projects from start to finish, such as changing this background or adding in these swirls or changing hair color. All the images I use in these are public domain, and you'll find a link to the pictures in the description if you want to work along and follow my demonstrations. Okay, let's go ahead and move into the project. In this video, I'll be showing you how to use the Photoshop Color Replacement tool to change the color of an image. Now this is my after picture in here. Let me just hide that. Here's the before picture. So we'll be changing the color of the top section, actually putting in two different colors in the top section using the Color Replacement tool, just like that. Easy to do, straightforward if you know how to use this. So let's get rid of this finished file here and over here to the original. Now this is a file that's named DSCN0379. Ignore the SM on that, that's just a smaller version of this for this video. So there's the file name, and you'll find a link for this file in the materials section. It's a public domain file, so you can download it from the internet and then work along exactly with the images that I'm using here in the training. Now to do this color shift, we want to be able to change the colors in the image, but do a selective change as well, giving us those different areas. We'll see how that's done. First, let's make this picture look just a little bit better. I'm going to do an improvement on this. We'll do image adjustments, and let's just take a look at our shadow highlights in here and see what that does. There we go. Let's take a look at our preview. I think that's a lot better. There we go. I frequently like using this control and just leaving everything at the default settings. It does a very good job of kind of spicing up an image, making it look a little bit more interesting. Okay, so there's our first little touch just to clean things up a little bit. Now the next thing we want to do is we want to take a look at our picture and think about the picture and see where there may be problems. In this case we're changing red, and almost the whole picture is everything except for red, but the bus and this tree over here and a little bit of red tones inside that part of that barn structure. So there are some other things that may be caught when we're doing our color change. I'll show you how to handle that. The tool we'll be using is up here under the image menu, adjustments, and come down here, replace color. Now I'm working in Photoshop CS6 for this particular video. If you're using a different version of Photoshop, you may find this in a little different location, but the tool is going to be working the same. There we go. So here is our replace color dialog box. Now, real easy to use. There are a lot of little specifics in here. You can, adjust your hue, saturation, lightness on your replacement in there. You can choose a fuzziness, which is how accurate the selection is. You can come in here and you can choose a color that you want to replace with this little color control here. You can add to that or subtract from that, using this to kind of localize the colors that you're working with. You can also preview or not preview your selection right over here. You can do localize color clusters as well. Notice that localized color clusters is a little better job, a little more accurate job on selecting that. I'm just going to come in here and choose kind of a mid-tone down here. Notice we have a highlight right there and over here, and then kind of mid-tones in here, and of course our shadows. So let's just choose a mid-tone, click on that, and that is the initial selection that this program does. You can see there's the bus nicely selected. We're getting a little bit of stuff over here and a little bit of stuff over there. We'll deal with that in just a minute. If you bring your fuzziness down, notice how you can get rid of those things, but you also lose some of your content up in here. So just bringing your fuzziness down is not the best way to control that. Again, we'll come back to that in a second. There's the image and there's our selection. Now to change the color, all you do is just change the hue here. You can adjust the saturation or the lightness. There's the lightness. There's saturation. So you make that almost a black and white if I wanted to. So that's our saturation. You can also type in a number here. I'll put that back to 0. What we care about though is the hue. Just pull this along and you can do a hue shift, and it does a real good job, as you can see in there, of grabbing a lot of what's in the image. Notice we're a little bit off up in here, a little bit of that red still showing in there. That's because we have a very large fuzziness level on that. There's our green color, purples, and into some blues and so forth. So all you do is you just find the color you want to change it to, and there you go. Notice though, watch the tree back here. You'll see that that tree is also changing colors as well. And in the grass down here a little bit also. So we want to be able to control that. We don't want to have any of those things changing. We just want to have the color in the bus changing and nothing else. Okay, let's just cancel this. To do that, we want to make a selection of the bus. Now because there are no reds right next to the bus, I don't need to do a real careful selection. If I had reds right next to it, I would have to come into a real careful selection on that edge to control that. But it's not that bad, so we can just do a regular selection. Let's grab one of our marquee tools here. I'll just use the polygonal lasso tool, easy to use. And I'll just come in just pretty close here. That's all I need to do. And just do a little quick selection around this, just coming in and clicking around the image. Notice it pulls a straight line, and where I click it puts a control handle and pulls another straight line. You see there. So I can just use this and kind of click around. Now it's good to start this tool off in a light area where you can see the tool, so you can come back to the beginning line. And when you roll over that beginning, notice how the cursor changes there. When you see that change of that cursor, you can click there. It then closes that selection. Now the reason why I do this is that the color change tool also will work just inside of the selection. So I've now taken care of all those other color changes. Let's take a look at that again. Image and adjustments. There we go. Replace color. Let's click someplace in here. And you can see now it's only showing me just the bus. It's of course squaring it off, but it's only showing me just the bus. I can bring this down a little bit like that, and I can see areas that don't quite match. Let's click on our plus, and I'll come in and click into those areas in here and try to bring in the rest of that area. Now it's a little too much down there, so let me pull the fuzziness back at this point. What I want to do is I want to get a good selection that is giving me a pure white in what I want to have changed, but nothing else. So if I pull this down a little bit, if I go real low here, you can see I need to have something in there. So let me just choose that. I'm still using the plus sign here. A little bit in the front of the bus, so I'll click on that. And it's looking pretty good now. So you have a nice bright whites in everything I want to have changed color-wise. There's even a little bit of the red stuff inside there. So it's looking pretty good. If I didn't want to change the inside coloration, like that little bit of a dashboard there, I could do another little selection right there and select out the windows. It then wouldn't change anything inside the windows. I'm not going to bother with getting that detailed. This is pretty good. Let's now look at our hue shift. See, now it's a nice clean shift. We're not changing anything in the background. We're not changing anything down here. And just the bus is giving us a nice clean color shift on that. So there we go. That is the basic idea in here behind doing this kind of color shift. Now, let's take this one step further. I'm just going to go ahead and do one. I'll just come right there, kind of a pink bus, choose OK. And there's a pink bus. You can see that. So it does a good job. If I want to do that double color technique which I showed you and had that little thin yellow line in there, we need to be a little more specific with our selection. So I'm going to first save this selection. Let's go over here, select and save selection. I'm just going to call this one bus. There we go. I also, if I'm actually making changes to a picture, I like to save my picture before I do anything major on that. So I'll just grab this, pull it down to the new layer button, make a copy of that, and hide this. So I'll just hide my uncolored bus down there, and then I'll work on this copy layer up here. Okay, so now I want to come in and make a selection along here that just gives me the top of the bus. So let's go back to our marquee tool here. And notice we have some options up here. New selection, add to a selection, subtract from a selection, or intersect. Choose an intersection. I'll use the subtract from the selection, and I'll take off the bottom part of the bus here. And I'll just start this way over here someplace and just click out there and pull a line. Now I'm leaving a little bit of a space there above that. We'll put our yellow line right above that. We'll do that as a secondary pass. Going right to the corner here. Click there, and I'll come towards the back of the bus. Now I'm looking at the lines of the windows here and the lines of the windows up there. I'm kind of just eyeballing where the perspective line should be. So I'm just kind of, just making that up, just eyeballing what looks good. So I'll click out there, and then I'll click out around my previous selection and come back to my starting point. There it is, and click, and that removes that bottom part of the selection, giving me just the top of the bus. Let's go ahead and save this one now. Save selection. Let's call it bus 2. Now this is going to be my yellow line in here. So let's go ahead, we'll make the top part of this yellow at this point. So image, adjustments, replace color. And let's just choose plus, and I'll come in and we'll choose a few parts of this bus and try to get a nice selection on that, just like we did before. Looks pretty clean. All I really care about is actually what's right along this line down here, and I think we're okay in there. Okay, so there's our section. Let's now change this up to a bright yellow. Let me see if I can find yellow in here. There we go. So there's too green. That's kind of too orange. I want just a yellow, but a little bit of a toned down look. Looks more realistic that way. So something right about in there. So there we go. I'll choose OK on that. So that's our first color change. And let's just grab this layer. I'll just save that one. There we are. Now for our second one, I want to do the exact same trick, but leave a little line down here. So I'm going to remove a little bit of the line there. Just remove the top or the bottom part of this selection, and we'll then color the rest of that in a blue. So same thing. We're still on our little marquee tool here. I'll find a nice spot right about there. Okay, that's too high up. Let me just double click and I'll try that again. Not quite where I want it. I'm having a little hard time spotting this. So I'm going to pull a little reference line down here. I want to get it just below that sign is what I'm trying to find here. Let's zoom in on that. Okay, now we can see what we're doing. Actually, I think we can do it without that line. As long as we're zoomed in, I'll back out just a touch. Back to our tool. So this is coming kind of down a little bit like that. I'll try right here. Not quite, just a little bit lower. There we go, right across the bottom. Just again, just kind of eyeballing this. Come right to the corner here. Click on the corner, and I'll move down towards the back. Notice how the window scrolls as I move the marquee tool over the edge. Now I want to come past the edge of my old selection here. And then I'm going to eyeball the thickness on this. It should be getting a little thinner towards the back so that it properly fits the perspective. Click in there, come down here someplace and click, and I'll move back towards the front again. out here, and then click back on the beginning. And that then removes that part from my selection, leaving just the top part of the bus. Okay, let's zoom out again. There we go. And we'll do our color change now for the top of the bus. Back up here, Image, Adjustments, Replace Color. And let's go to our plus, and let's come in and click a few times in here, trying to get all of the different values. Getting a good selection, as good as possible. A little bit off on that one, didn't quite work out there. Let me just make sure I get rid of that sky. There we go. Okay, back to our plus sign. This area over here on the right side, that's looking pretty good. Again, I'm watching the mat over here, and where I'm clicking, notice that this line here is not selected well, so I'll click into that. That gets that one, maybe just a little bit up in here. And we're looking pretty good. I think we have a pretty good mat now. It gives me all of my different values. Okay, that was just a little bit too far on that one. But you see the idea here. You want to come in and carefully select those different values. I'm going to start that over again because we kind of missed on that one. That last one there, I went just a little bit too far. We'll start there, into our plus. That went too far. Let's bring our fuzziness down. And then come in and grab the areas that we're missing in here. And right up there. I'm trying to get right up near the edge without going right over the edge. Okay, that's a pretty good looking map. Let's bring our fuzziness down a little bit. I think we've just about got it. Alright, let's now try our color change. Okay, something in around here looks pretty good. That kind of looks like a British kind of bus. Notice we don't quite have the top edge right there. So it's not quite selected well enough. Let me see if I can get right up against that edge and get that just a little bit better. Okay, I think we've got that. Let's adjust our hue again just a touch. And let's check our fuzziness levels on this. Bring that up just a bit, and we can use that fuzziness control to do that last little cleanup on that edge up there. Now I'm picking up just a little bit over here, as you can see down there, a little bit on that side. That's not really what I want to have happening. Let's go to our minus, and let's click into that area and try to clean that out a little bit. Okay, I think we've got it. Choose OK. Let's deselect that. And there we go. Fancy color change. Now to make this really nice, obviously we have a little bit of a bleed right over here, right behind, but you can kind of see that bleed right in there. I could fix that just by bringing in some of this color over here, a little color shift on that, make a little selection and clean that up. Or if I was really concerned about this, I would have taken more trouble and done a much more careful selection around that edge of that bus so that I wouldn't have had anything available to select except for just the bus and get even a cleaner edge that way. But there you go. That's how you use that tool to just kind of fancy recoloration. Let's just go ahead. We'll do just a little cleanup on that while we're talking about it. This actually is pretty easy right now because I have these other layers in behind. Let me show you can do that. Just a real fast fix. Let's grab our marquee tool again here. I'm just going to come right down the edge here. It doesn't need to be perfect on what I'm going to be doing right now. Bring it down just about to there. That gets it. And I'll work into this area here. And because the same picture is in behind, all I have to do is just erase that out. Let's bring our eraser size down a little bit. There we go. Just erase through. So there's a hole now in this picture, and we're seeing the picture in behind, which had no color change on that. Deselect. Another reason why it's a good idea to have a backup layer in here they can go ahead and use. Let's just fit that on screen, and there we go. So we have the original down here. There's our in-between stage, and then there's the final stage, repainting our bus, giving it a whole new look just by using the color replacement tool. I have a few questions that have been asked about this particular technique. We'll start off with the first one. That's the replace color option is grayed out. Now if you go up here to the image menu and adjustments, and you come down here and this is grayed out, you can't access it. Let me show you when that happens. This is if you're using a color mode of 32 bits per channel. In 8 bits or 16 bits, you'll have this available. Replace color will be available. You can use it. If, though, you're using 32 bits per channel, you won't have access to that tool. Let me just show you that. I'll switch here to 32 bits per channel. There we go. So our mode now is 32 bits. And let's look at our adjustments. And notice that replace color is now grayed out, along with a lot of other stuff, as you can see in here. You lose a lot of editing techniques if you're working in 32-bit color. So it's best not to do that. Best to work in 8 or 16, depending upon your needs. But there you go. If you see the replace color grayed out, and also especially if you notice other things are grayed out as well, chances are you're working in 32-bit color. So just go up here to mode and switch down to 16, and you'll be just fine. Let me just undo that switch. Another common question is, how do you change the color of something that's white on the page? Let me show you the problem here. I'll make a new layer, and let's just make a selection on that. And I'll fill that with white. Let's just change this here to a white foreground and fill with white. Deselect. There we go. So we have a white area now. I can just hide that back. We don't need that. So let's go up here to image adjustments, replace color. There's our white area. That's my selection. As you can see, fuzziness doesn't matter. We've selected color in here. That's the result. If I change the hue, this is the color value. Notice that nothing changes. No color change happens. Saturation, nothing changes. That's because we don't have any color in here. White has no color content, no color value. I can change the lightness. If I go to the left, I can make it darker and make it a gray tone. So I can do that kind of an adjustment. But even at gray, I can't add any color back in where there is no color to begin with. So if you need to colorize a white area, what you'll need to do first is to add some color to that. So, depending upon what it is, you may need to make a careful selection. Possibly this bus was in white. I'd have to make a careful selection of everything so that only the white part of the bus was showing. I could then select that bus, just the color part of that, and add in a color to it, or use the color tool over here just to, again, to select the shape using the replace color to give me a selection, and then come in and add a color to that selection. Once you have some color in there, doesn't matter what the color is, once you have some color in there, you can then change that color. The big problem, of course, is we have all these values, these tonal shades. You want to keep all that tonal shade stuff, and that's where it gets tricky adding in a color like this if this was, for instance, a pure white bus. So you may want to try some other technique to make a color shift on that before you go in and colorize that image. For instance, go up to our image adjustments and hue saturation in here. You can choose colorize on hue saturation, and you can actually change the color of your image. And all you need is just a little bit. As long as you have some color in there, you then can go ahead and change it around anywhere you want to. Now, this of course is just a white square. If I had this bus, for instance, I'm going to do a real fast selection around this bus. Just kind of give you an idea. I won't spend any great amount of time on this. I should make a fast selection like that. And I'll make a new layer based on that selection. There we go. Hide everything else. So there's our bus. And image. If I had no color in here, for instance, if I had converted this to a black and white, like that, there is no color values in that image. Let's see if we can find something that has kind of a nice lightness. That's pretty good. Okay, so if I had a white bus like that had no color values in that image, what I could do would be to carefully select around the bus, again making a tight selection, so you are protecting the whole background. You don't want any of the background stuff in there. You want just real careful tight selection around your bus, your white bus. Then go into image adjustments, bring up hue saturation and colorize. Right there, click on colorize. Once you have that colorize in there, you then can add in some more saturation. You can darken it down a little bit, and you can get some color actually happening in that bus. You can even use this, of course, to make your color change if you want to. But the whole trick here is you want to get some color into that first. When you have some color, then you can use the color replace tool to change the color based upon that. So you have to come here to the hue saturation and colorize that white, and play around with these a little bit until you get a little bit of color in there. Once you have some color, then you can change that color very easily. Okay, one more question. How do you change color of text? We have some text in here, as you can see. Let's go back to our regular picture. Let me just hide that. And let's zoom in on this text. Let's say I wanted to change the color of that text. Maybe this main road thing here, and give that a different color. Same exact thing as colorizing the white bus. I'll just make a tight selection on this. I'm not going to be coming here and doing this real carefully right now. I'd do a little more care on that, but we'll be okay here for this demo. So do a tight selection on your text, and then go up to image. Make sure I'm on the right layer. There we go. Image adjustments. And we're going to do our hue saturation again. Colorize that. Give it a little bit of color. And then we can either use this to colorize our text, or use the replace color to colorize the text. So there you go. Same thing as doing the colored bus. Now again, this will work best if you're coming in here and you're doing a real tight selection on each of these individual letters. Of course, you also can, if you're doing this, you can come in and do it on a separate layer like I have here, and then erase out what you don't want to have to reveal the clean area in behind, or do new lettering. Lots of ways of doing that. But if your lettering is in there, what you need is a real tight selection, maybe even selecting around each one of the letters real tightly, and then just using that trick of colorizing that first with hue saturation, and then changing or adjusting your color. Okay, so that is a look then at colorizing an image, or changing your colors on an image. Thank you for watching this special Photoshop photography project video. Don't forget to subscribe so that you will get first notice of new project videos in the future. just click on this link right here where it says subscribe here. You can get all 12 project videos in this series along with 26 special videos demonstrating the tools and techniques that I used in these projects by clicking on this link right down here. And then thank you again for watching this training video.